Hello and welcome everyone to IELTS webinar. I am Madhuparna, the coordinator of this webinar. We have our speaker for the day, Ms. Chitra Shastri. She is a British Council certified trainer as well as a CELTA certified trainer. The topic for the day is IELTS listening, section 4. So before we actually start, a lot of you have already joined and a few more are actually joining. So every one of you, you will be able to find the word search in the screen. All that you have to do is just pick up the three words that you can see in the screen and drop it in the chat box. Three words and you can drop it in the chat box that you can actually see it in the screen. Okay. So I'll just, okay. A lot of you have raised the hand. Okay, we have started getting responses. Search, journey, curious. Sumit says curious as well as search and journey. Okay, and Mushru says explore, study. That's wonderful. Few more words have come up. If moving ahead, ambition. That's great. Let me take you through the rules of the webinar. Throughout the webinar, if you have any kind of questions, you can drop it in the Q&A box. We will try to pick as much as questions possible towards the end of the presentation. You can also use the chat box if you have any kind of doubts, or we would prefer you going through the Q&A box to drop the questions. Our speaker would pick up the questions for the day and try to answer as much as questions possible. Well, apart from that, to help you with the study abroad, we have the Azent Compass, which is available as both in iOS as well as Android users. You can download it from the Google Store, which will help you for finding the right university. Over to you, Chitra.
Thank you so much, Madhuparna. Good afternoon, guys. So starting with today's session, as the name of the session suggests, we'll be discussing about the section 4 of IELTS listening. And before moving on with section 4 and all the logistic things, there are two things that I want to repeat. As Madhuparna said, if you have any doubt, you can put it in the Q&A box, where most of you have actually put the word search words. That's fine. You all can now also access the chat box. So if you have anything to say in between, you can put it there. Moving on, so let's first understand what happens in the IELTS listening test, how the test is basically being conducted. Now, the test goes on for 30 minutes. If you are going with the computer-based approach, for paper-based approach, you get extra 10 minutes just to transfer your answers. You cannot listen to the audio again, neither can you play it again or anything. You have written all, like whatever answers you have written on the question paper, you just get this extra time to put it on your answer sheet. Now, in the listening test, you get 40 questions and there are 4 sections. So all these 40 questions are divided equally, like 10 questions in each section. and there are majorly 6 question types. Now, talking about the difficulty level, because this is something due to which section 4 is considered to be the most difficult one or the trickiest one. So, the difficulty level increases per section. Like section 1 is the easiest one. If we'll talk about section 2, it's little bit trickier than section 1. Section 3, the level of difficulty rises a lot in here, and section 4 is the most difficult one. Now, talking about the types of questions, so these are the 6 to 7 types of questions that you can get. In section 4, you generally get fill up, or you do not get multiple choice question that much, but fill ups or questions where you have to write short answers, diagram, labeling questions. Now, what is the difficulty or the challenge which people face in here? If we talk about the format, so this is how the format differs in all the 4 sections. Like in section 1, you have 2 speakers talking to each other about everyday context. So, first of all, the conversation that you're listening to is not alien to you. You would have listened, like, let's say, a landlord is talking to a tenant about the rent the person has to pay, or let's say a teacher is talking to a student. This is something which you would not get surprised to listen to. Plus, the speed or the pace of the speakers is not very fast. So you are able to understand each and everything nicely. Coming to the second part, that is the section 2 here, again, you are able to listen to an everyday context. Now, in this situation, only one person would be talking. Let's say a minister is there, and the minister is addressing to the whole colony or locality or the city. So, the speech of that minister would come in this. Likewise, you might also listen to a teacher talking to his or her students. Again, the speed of this teacher or whoever the person is who's talking in here would not be very fast. So you would be able to understand each and every word. Second thing, the vocabulary that is being used here is also very easy to understand. The third thing, in section 1 and section 2, there are distractors in these 2 sections, but again, the distractors are not very tricky. So you would be able to understand what your answer is. A lot of students, especially Indian students, they are able to score 20 out of 20 in these 2 sections. Now, the major part or the difficult part is in section 3 and 4, where in section 3 you have 2 to 4 speakers. Sometimes you might get confused which person is speaking what did the other person say. In section 4, again, you have a monologue where only one person is talking. But in this case, when this one person is talking, he or she would not take enough pauses in between. What is the meaning of not taking enough pauses? So they continuously speak about whatever they are speaking. Generally, you get an academic context in here. Academic context as the context as in a teacher would be training, or a researcher would be talking about his or her research. So sometimes it gets a little bit boring too to listen to the same thing for continuous 3 to 4 or 5 minutes maybe. How can we deal with this thing, and how can we score a perfect 9 band? Let's look at these things. Before that, we're there on Instagram as well. Like, you can search us by the username English as Azent. We do post daily videos, daily content related to IELTS, a lot of tips and tricks, which would definitely help you to gain a lot of gain a good band score furthermore. In between, we have a small break. Over to you, Madhuparna.
So we have a surprise for you. You'll have to all wait till the end of the session. Before that, to know you all better, I'm going to launch a poll where you can actually help us with a couple of questions. Our relationship managers would reach out to you post the webinar. You can see this poll in your screen now. We have started getting responses for the poll. This would be here for the next 2 seconds. Over to you, Chitra.
Thank you, Madhuparna. So moving on with the section 4. In section 4, now what is the difficulty? As we have already discussed, first of all, the person would be speaking continuously, and after that, you won't be able to understand, or sometimes we do skip information. What are the things through which you can keep up with the pace, you can keep up with your questions? Let's look at these few techniques. First technique is use the 30 seconds time given to you efficiently. One of the tasks in this part is you get all the questions in one go. Just for the reference purpose, I haven't added 5 more questions in here, but in the real test, majority of the times you will have question number 31st to question number 40th in one go. You'll have it on the same screen, or the audio would not have any break in between. Now, if you are comparing it to other sections, in those 30 seconds, sometimes if we have MCQ question or anything like fill-ups as well, we are able to look at those 3-4 questions in those 30 seconds efficiently. But if we have 10 questions and 30 seconds of time, this is not a very good like proportion to go through the questions. What can we do in here? Rather than running after each and every question, just look at the initial 3 questions. Understand what is being asked or what the initial 3 questions are saying. If you're going for pen and paper, it's better if you mark your keywords. Now, if we read the first one, despite the rather dash animal paintings are nevertheless impressive. If we are going to look at the keyword for fill-ups, it's better to mark the words which are there before and after the fill-up. So we have to look at something which is related to this. The rather dash animal paintings are nevertheless impressive. So dash animal paintings, we have to see what sort of animal paintings are there. However, by dash, such artworks are considered rather primitive. However, by dash, such artworks, by dash, by what? So we have to look for something which is relating to artworks. And last thing, if you have time, mark your keyword for the next question as well. So if we look at the next question, are dash to have some artistic talent? Other species do too. So apes are dash, so some talent we have to look for, artistic talent. If you are unable to understand what the question is asking for, just mark the unique information which you feel is there in that question. Moving on, now, if let's say these are our keywords we have marked, what is the next thing that you are supposed to do? Because by this time, the audio will start playing. Next trick or the next thing is keep the upcoming question in mind. Whenever you are marking your answer, whenever you are marking your keywords, make sure you are keeping the next question in mind. How to do that? Let's say we marked keywords till the third question, 33rd question. It will never happen that your answer for the 34th question is in the next line itself. Because, of course, the examiners, the people who are designing the test, they do understand. It would become impossible for you to find the answer in such a manner. So when you are done with the answer of 33rd, your task is to quickly go and read or find the keyword for the next question and keep it in mind. Even when you are finding the answer for the 31st answer, keep the keyword or keep the question, like the next question in mind, so that even if you are missing on the first one, you'll know, okay, the second has come, that means I have missed the first one. You would not miss on the whole audio. So this is a trick. You need to keep the next question in mind when you are answering. Moving on to the next trick, the next thing, annotate along the audio. So when the audio is being played, you would be able to listen to some words which would click to you that, okay, this word is written here and the person is saying the same word. This word is written and the person is saying the same word. So when this is happening, when you have a pen and paper, what you can do, you can move along. Let's say if you are able to listen to the word animal painting, so just maybe scratch a line or scribble a line or maybe put a dot under the word or near the word which you are able to notice. Next thing, if let's say you are listening to this part and suddenly you realize that the person has said primitive, which is there in our next question. Like primitive, we all can see is here. That means, and if you weren't able to listen to the answer to the first part here, let's say we are listening to this part, I'm repeating myself again. Let's say you heard the keyword which is there in your second question, and you weren't able to listen to the keyword which is there in your first question. This simply means that you missed listening to the part which is your answer to this question, and what you need to do here is just let it go. Do not sit back, do not regret that I missed, or do not even try to remember what the answer was or what the person said, because you have missed it and there's no way to go back. You won't be allowed to listen to the audio again, you won't be allowed to replay it or anything. So just move along with the word that you have got now and start finding your answers from there. So in this task, what we'll do, we have the audio in here. I want all of you to listen to the audio carefully. Okay, you will have 30 seconds to, for the ones who want to go for computer based, what you can do, you can simply like on the screen, move along with each and every word. So in these 30 seconds, what are you supposed to do? Mark your keywords and again, try to find your answers. So I'm playing the audio, listen to it carefully.
Section 4. You will hear part of an art lecture. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40.
Do not run after.
Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
I have just shown you all some slides of a very varied set of paintings. I noticed, as I was showing the slides, a few giggles in the audience and a few looks of dismay. I guess entitling my lecture Unconventional Art Geniuses was a bit misleading. When most of you were looking at the frankly basic colour use and rather primitive painting techniques, you probably were more than a little surprised. Well, I have a shock for you all. What I'm about to tell you next will help you understand the title of my lecture. All the slides I showed you previously are of artworks made by, wait for it, animals. Yes, I heard a few gasps in the audience when I said that. Whilst the artwork would be definitely primitive by human standards, when you consider that the artworks were executed by animals, then, well, they are frankly staggering. Nor were the artworks purely the work of our closest relatives, the apes. No, they were produced by animal artists drawn from a diverse pool of species, ranging from elephants to gorillas, birds, and even sloths. In fact, in recognition of this, last year, London's Grant Museum of Zoology staged what organisers thought was the first interspecies show of paintings by animals. In the show, art was shown from an orangutan, a gorilla, and an elephant. Whilst the gorilla and the orangutan produced works that bore a resemblance to the paintings of modern artists de Kooning and Klein, the elephant's work took a more figurative approach in the rendering of a flower pot. Now, Before you all go thinking this is a revolutionary discovery, I would like to put the record straight. The contribution animals can make to the art world was highlighted as far back as the 1950s. In this decade, Desmond Morris, celebrated social anthropologist and author of bestsellers such as Body Watching and The Naked Ape, introduced Congo, the painting chimp, to the British public in a TV appearance. Back then, animal art makers were regarded as little more than a novelty. Today, however, animal artists are not viewed so much as novelties, but as sophisticated creators with skills and senses that they use to execute artworks in ways humans never can. As a result of animals being taken more seriously as creators of art, it has become commonplace today for zoos to provide materials to captive animals. The hope is that by giving animals the means to create art, they will be kept physically and mentally stimulated. Obviously, you can't give a lizard a paintbrush and expect it to draw. What the zookeepers do, though, is to give animals species-appropriate art materials and tools. For example, sloth bears, who feed by blowing away dirt from the forest floor to feed on termites, have been given a straw-like apparatus to blow paint onto a canvas.
Okay, so I want all of you to post your answers or to send your answers through the chat section. Everyone can access the chat section. Whatever answers you have marked, or even if you want me to play the audio again, or if you have any doubts, you can put it in the chat box. So I'll be able to give answer for that. We have Mohil is there. Mohil, if you have any doubt, you have raised your hand, you can put it in the chat box. Or you have permission to speak now as well. So you can unmute yourself and speak. Mohil, do you have any doubt?
No, ma'am. Ma'am, the only thing is, somewhat the pronunciation was not able to understand. That's it.
It's not a conversation when one person is talking. It is called a monologue, first of all. Second thing, see, when one person is talking, especially in section 4, the speed of the speaker would be a little bit faster. So what you need to do, how you will be able to understand initially when you're practicing, and if you have enough time for the exam, let's say you have 1 month for your exam. So initial 1 week, you need to work on the accent. You need to work on understanding the accent basically. Because here you won't find Indian accent. You'll find different like American accent, Canadian accent, New Zealand accent, a typical Australian accent, which are sometimes difficult to understand considering the speed of the speaker. So make yourself comfortable with this. Nowadays, when you're playing an audio, you can reduce the playback speed. Let's say your audio is there and you have this option where you can reduce the playback speed. Just 1 second, I'll show you. So what you can do, you can reduce it.
Section 4. You will hear part of an art lecture.
Like this, if you're reducing the speed a little bit, you would be able to understand to each and every word what the person is saying. Next thing, annotate with what the person is saying. If you're able to listen to the word animal, so move along. Okay, animal painting, impressive. They won't speak exact word which is written here. Instead of impressive, he or she might use some other word or phrase. Like people were happy with the animal paintings. People being happy means they were impressed with the animal painting. So you need to work on synonyms as well or similar phrases. You need to work on understanding the accent. Third thing, try to annotate with whatever is being said in the audio. If you will follow these 3-4 steps, you would easily be able to catch with the speed. Next thing, as I've shared these 2-3 tips with you, again, what you need to do is when you are getting the question, do not run after each and every question in those 30 seconds. Only look at the initial 2 to 3 questions and try to understand these 2 to 3 questions. If you're doing this, you would be able to understand the remaining text as well. Okay, anyone else with any doubt? In the Q&A box, someone was asking, can we mark like keywords and all in the computer-based test? So no, you cannot do that in computer-based test. In computer-based test, what you can do, you'll have to keep your keywords in mind. This is the only thing that you can do. Next thing, in paper-based, you do get 10 minutes extra, but again, in those 10 minutes, you won't be able to listen to the audio again. So those 10 minutes are only only used to transfer your answers. If you've made a spelling error or something like that, you can correct it. Else, there's no special thing that you can do in those 10 minutes. Anyone else with any doubt, guys, put it in the chat box. Any extra time for CBT at the end? Khushbu, you do get like 2 to 3 minutes just to review your answers. Whether you have written like all the answers that you have written, you can see those once again. If you have made any spelling error or at the end moment you see anything, you can recorrect it. It's not much, like it's not enough to copy all your answers, to write all your answers in there. So don't rely on those 2 to 3 minutes that you're getting at the end. Others, guys, anyone who's having any doubt, is it possible to crack IELTS within 14 days? You can crack IELTS. See, first of all, crack IELTS, again, it's not the right phrase to use because there's no pass or fail in IELTS. You get a band score. If the score is being accepted by your university, you get a good band, that is called a good band score. If not, then like it's not a good band score. Again, no passing or failing in here. It is advised to score above 7 only. And yes, I have seen people in like my training career, I have seen people who are able to score more than 7 bands in 14 days, even in 1 week as well. But it depends on the level of your current English, how well you can speak, how well can you write. So for that, I would advise you to take a mock test. If in that mock test you are scoring somewhere around 6 bands, in 14 days you can get more than 7 bands. You need to practice a lot in those 14 days. Like you should dedicate yourself to those 14 days to IELTS, purely to IELTS. Then you can. Others, guys, if you have any doubt, do ask. We have a lot of people. You can see Sumit is there, Manish is there, and others too. Ask questions if you have any doubt regarding IELTS listening or even regarding any other module. You're free to ask. And if you want to speak, don't want to type, you can again raise your hand. I'll give you permission to speak. So these are the answers. If you guys were able to get the answers correctly, it's good. If not, I would suggest, because in one go, this is actually section 4 is the most difficult one through like the whole IELTS test. Section 4 is something, if we are even comparing it with the reading section and speaking, writing section 4 is the most difficult one. But still, there are a lot of people who score 10 out of 10 or who get a perfect 9 band in the listening test. So you can also do it, but follow the tricks that I've told you in the class, the tips that I've told you today, and you'll be there. Anyone else with any doubt? Quickly ask your doubts, guys. If you're getting nervous on your reading module, see, practice is something that will help you. Second thing, try to find your weak points. What do I mean by weak points? Sometimes some people, they are unable to understand what is written in the text. Sometimes people face problem in particularly one type of question, like maybe match the heading or fill up sort of question. Sometimes finding the location, like you have a question and you need to find where in the whole essay where the answer is located. Sometimes people are unable to locate that position in the essay. So first try to find your weakness. If you know that this is where I'm lacking, work on your weakness, and then yeah, if you're working on it, you'll definitely improve. Nothing difficult in it. Fine, guys. So I think we are done with all the doubts and everything. Over to you, Madhuparna.
I hope everyone have really liked the session. Was it really helpful, guys?